Hey friends, Minna here. Just wanted to hop in here and let you know we are rerunning our 5-day challenge, Bestseller Secrets Challenge. We ran this about a month ago and thousands of people went through it. We had so much fun, and our challenges are always so much fun. They're really great for giving you that extra motivation, especially in a time when we all could really use it. And this challenge, the Bestseller Secrets Challenge, is all about leaning into what works right now to grow your product business so you aren't throwing spaghetti at the wall. So make sure you join us. Again, that's Bestseller Secrets Challenge. Take it again if you need that extra motivation. Join us this time if you missed it the first time. We really love our challenges and it's really going to be great. So head over to www.bestsellersecretschallenge.com and I'll put that in the show notes, and we are so excited to see you in there. So let's get started on today's episode. Welcome to the Product Boss Podcast, where we help product-based businesses grow their sales and improve their strategies.
Hey everyone, I want to introduce you to my co-host and biz bestie, Minna Kübler-Ross, an Amazon guru that has built a multi-six-figure product-based business.
And introducing the other half of the Product Boss, Jacqueline Snyder. She has helped launch and grow over 500 fashion apparel and accessory brands, even one of her own.
And together, we share our inventory of secret weapons that will help you dig deep and do the work it takes.
Are you ready? Let's build together.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Product Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Jacqueline Snyder, with my socially distant co-host, Minna Kübler-Ross. Hey, Minna.
Hey, Jacqueline.
So in times like these, things are changing. They're changing globally. So when they say we're all in this together, they literally mean the entire globe is in this together. And a lot of times when we are dealing with, personal change, grief, tragedy, big changes in our business, a lot of times that's ours and ours alone. But right now, what's happening in the world is happening amongst almost every single person. And I think there's some comfort to be taken in the fact that we're all going to need to change. And now the question is how?
Yeah, I feel like our lives are a bit uprooted, and that means every single one of us has to kind of go through this, process of change that's happening for every single one of us, some more than others, right? And I've been seeing a lot of people reacting in various ways. There's some that are really intensely having to grapple with a lot of their feelings, and others that are just like, this is no big deal, even, right? So there's definitely ranges of reactions. I've been seeing a lot of things in social media talking about the grief process, right? Those ones that are saying it's okay to feel the way that you do. It's okay to grieve those events that you wanted to happen, all these different things. For me, that actually reminded me, deep in that memory vault of when my daughter was in the hospital for open heart surgery. They were talking about grief and basically the process of dealing with crisis and change. And so it reminded me of this model, and I brought it up to Jacqueline and the masterminders that are on the top, and it was actually really helpful for them because they saw the process of dealing with change. So today's episode, we'll be talking about that process and really how to handle a whole lot of change happening, right?
Yeah. So a lot of you may have heard about the stages of grief. And that's the Kübler-Ross grief cycle. She created it where it's denial, anger, depression, bargaining, and acceptance. And she has a book, and the book is called Death and Dying. And it was published. She also shared this other. It's called the change curve. And this is actually where we're going to focus on here. And the Kübler-Ross model and the change curve is a little bit different. The way that this model looks is that it's time. And in that time, these are the stages of change when you're going through change of what you may be dealing with. So, and we're going to dig into them, but I'm going to just tell you about them in the beginning. So there's shock, denial, frustration, depression, experiment, decision, and then integration. And we think this is so applicable to businesses right now. I mean, ultimately in our personal lives as well, but because we're a business podcast, we're going to talk about how you can apply this change curve and see where you are right now in it, and how eventually we will all get to integration, which ends with changes are integrated and there's you're renewed and revived as an individual.
Yeah. So because our family was going through trauma at the time, we were introduced to this model, right? But it's really to let you know that your life is okay with changing, right? A lot of times we start at the beginning and we'll start with shock, right? That's a denial, shock and denial where we don't want to change. But if you're ever thrust into crisis, you have no option but to change, right? And you'll see this in families that are going through trauma or somebody that's been diagnosed with something, or maybe your child has to go through something, whatever it is, there's this emotional outcome that your reaction. And the first part of that is shock and denial. So, shock and denial. This is just like the flu, right? For COVID-19, whatever it is, or whatever change is happening, let's say, you are needing to adapt your business and you have a brick and mortar, for instance, you're in shock and denial in the beginning that I don't want to change, and this is just going to be a quick process and we'll be back to normal after social distancing. So we begin at that first stage of that surprise or shock and the disbelief that this is even going to change.
Yeah. And these are two separate stages. So first shock was probably like, markets are canceled. The NBA is not playing, people are saying like shelter in place and it's happening for other people. Then you get to denial where it's like disbelief, looking at the evidence that isn't true, right? When people started searching for reasons this wouldn't be true or this wouldn't affect where they were, or just thinking, this is just going to be 30 days, we'll be open by Easter, for example. So those are two of the places. I think a lot of us are probably past the shock and past the denial stage. Mm-hmm. Then you get to the frustration stage. So frustration is recognition that things are different. And sometimes you might be feeling angry.
Right. So this is where you feel scared, and you're reacting in anger and why is this happening? I can't believe this. I lost this money in the trade shows I was supposed to be a part of. You're very frustrated in the fact that why do we have to social distance and all these things? It's more of the anger and that initial reaction of you kind of grappling with the initial shock and denial and then moving into a bit of frustration and anger.
And what do you do, right? So you're probably like, this was canceled. All of my options are canceled. We heard this from a bunch of people that follow us or some of our students that had said, I do 50% of my business in in-person events. They're all canceled. My business is going to fail. Right. Is that true? No, you're just in that stage of frustration.
Totally. And I think that this is the easiest place to get stuck in. When I was talking about this to the top masterminders, remembering this model, I said that I spent years in this anger and frustration stage because I wasn't willing to accept that I needed to move through the process. And I think it's easy to get stuck in that fear and the uncertainty and anger and frustration. And you just have so much to focus on. Like I can focus on the things that are going wrong instead of what I need to do to move forward.
Yeah. And so on this change model and this change curve is that basically it shows you your morale and competence on the left vertical, and then the bottom is time. So shock, you're sort of in the middle. Denial is when you kind of start to go up the roller coaster where you're like, oh no, my morale is high and my competence is high because this isn't true and it's all going to get better. And then when you start to realize that it's changing, you start to go take that ride down the roller coaster where your morale and competence is starting to dip. And then you get to the very bottom. This is the most bottom of this curve. And it says you hit depression. So low mood and lacking in energy. Hands up high in the sky if you have felt low mood and lacking energy. Probably 2 weeks ago, Minna, I was like, this is where I was.
Mm-hmm. This is where a lot of us were. Luckily, we have each other. So we kind of understand that we're each moving through this in our own time. And even with the people in the masterminders or in the top mastermind, they said, oh, I think I'm in the depression stage right now, because you start to feel like there's so many big things happening and you start to feel overwhelmed by it. That's when you hit the depression stage of this change curve.
I just want to climb into my bed, get under the covers, and maybe watch Netflix and hope one day this is done and magically my business will be better.
Yeah.
Or I'm just going to, we've said like some people are like, I'm going to burn it. Like they feel that sense of burning it down. Like it's done. I'm done. I never need to do this again.
Right.
I'm going to fire everyone and I'm closing the doors. I mean, no matter what your reaction is, and you guys probably have felt some of this at some point, that's that point. But here's the awesome thing. This depression is the very bottom of this model, because then we
It
start to move into the
upswings.
next stage. Yeah. And
Right.
this is a part I think Minna and I are really determined to support all of you in moving through this and forward. And like we've said, it's temporary and there's light at the end of the tunnel, because as soon as we can start to get into these next few stages, you will feel your morale go up, your confidence. And then when the doors open back up, when we're through the tunnel, you will be transformed.
Right. So the depression stage, I want to reassure you guys that you will move out of it. Right. It feels very heavy, and I don't want to in any way, shape, or form minimize it, but I want you to know that we've been there as well. And then you have to move forward from it. That's the way to get out of that stage, is just to focus on how you can move forward, which is the next stage, and that is experiment. So this is where you initially engage with your new situation.
Which is, how do I sell? How do I become more visible? How do I keep my business running from home during social distancing? How do I sell my products? How do I get more visibility? Am I being too salesy? How do I become more authentic? All of these things you guys have been thinking about. Now you're getting to experiment with it and engage in this new situation, this new way of doing business, which really is amazing, because it forces innovation and it forces creativity and experimenting. Just think back to the days when you were younger and you played, like little science kits, or you put water in mud and you saw like how muddy and liquidy it got, just all the things that you did as a child. Now play with that, play with this experimental phase in your business.
Right. You're starting to kind of peel back the layer of, hey, there might be some silver linings to this, right? I can get creative. I can figure it out. I'm an entrepreneur for a reason, because I'm super savvy. I'm super resourceful. How can I move forward with this and kind of experiment how I want to move forward? And that's, really a decision to move into this next stage, right? Of, okay, I'm going to do it, and let's see what happens.
Well, you just said the key word, because after experiment, right? After you start to think like, what do I do with this new situation? The next step is decision. So this is when your confidence and your morale are on the uptick. So decisions is learning how to work in the new situation and feeling more positive. So we've heard a lot of talk about the new normal, in quotes. I'm not sure how long this will be the new normal, but the coolest thing about the quote unquote new normal is the force way forward. Like I said, in innovation, people being able to work from home, experiment at working from home, realizing that actually industries can have their people at home. And so as you're learning to work within this new situation, there are some plus sides to it.
Right. Decisions are really important. This decision stage is really important, because then you start to figure out what you have control over. And I think that that's when people start feeling that uptick of their energy level, is that, oh, at least I can control this. Right. And then, even look at these stages from having your kids at home. I was in shock at first, then denial. Oh my gosh, these kids are going to be, then frustration. How am I supposed to do this with my kids at home? Then depression. Oh my gosh, these kids
just
don't listen
TV
to
all
me.
Day.
Right. Then I'm experimenting. What can I do with this is happening? Then I make some decisions. And then the next step is integration. And this is especially important, because I remember thinking when I got to the stage back, before, that I'm just a different person. My perspective has completely changed, and I will never be that person that I was before. And I think that that's what we have to remember, is that there's a different version of ourselves and our businesses at the other end of this. So that's when changes are integrated and there's a renewed individual, which is you.
And you may have never, it's those things that you dream about. Like, I'm going to run more and go in a marathon. I can't even say the words because
seems so far away.
It's not in my list. But if it's, you're like thinking about wanting to train for a marathon, but you didn't have time, right? Or you were thinking about homeschooling your kids, but you were too afraid to make that change. Or you were thinking about leaving your full-time job and going full-time product boss. There's a lot of different things that we've thought about. And until this force change happened, they weren't going to happen. You weren't going to come through on the other end renewed and these changes integrated. There are other ways that this Kübler-Ross model can be incorporated in normal days when it's not dealing with some sort of pandemic. I'll tell you, I went through this with my company, Designer Consulting Co-op, when the main person who ran my business in Los Angeles as I was bi-coastal got scouted by a bigger company, and she gave me notice that she was leaving. And I was like, shock. Oh my God, I thought she was never going to leave. She told me she wasn't going to leave. Now she's leaving. Denial. Maybe she's not really going to leave. Frustration. I hate her. How dare she do this to me? Depression. My business is never to come back from this. How do I do this? My business wasn't created for this. Experiment. Well, what if I create a different offering for them? What if I just coach and I don't make everything, right? Experiment. Okay. Decision. I'm going to try that. I'm going to do it. I'm going to put that out there and see if anyone pays me for it. Integration. You guys have been running my business for the last, 4 years now with a really small team and just coaching people instead of doing all the things. So I went through the same model with just a normal work occurrence. And so I think what Minna's saying, where she used it personally, where you can use it on just day-to-day things that happen in your business, or you can use it during a pandemic and shutting down and the way that the economy has changed, we can all integrate this into our businesses.
Yeah, for sure. I love that, how you apply that. The integration, it reminds me of, so Jacqueline and I have been talking to each other every single day because it's been lots of emotions, lots of hard things. And being business partners, of course, we're kind of going through the same process together, right? And she was reminding me of Biz Coach, School of Life. School, not School of Life. Life Coach School. Yes.
School podcast. Yeah.
Right. And where Jacqueline's been fully immersed when she goes all in, So it reminds me of one morning when she said, I think we have to move forward knowing like it's already through it. Instead of being like, I will do this when I'm through it. I'll just do this when I'm through it. And this is exactly what that model is. You're integrating and you're looking at the person that you are. It's like you're living like you're already there rather than, I'll get through this process, right? You're integrating immediately in a way. So for her, it was like, I can grow my own food. I'm going to integrate that immediately. I'm cool with that, right? So she steps into it. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to remember is that this model, it shows us kind of the route that we're kind of weaving here, but we need to step into it.
Because this Kübler-Ross model can be associated to me dealing with Instacart and getting my groceries.
Okay. Hit me with it.
Shock. There are no delivery times. Denial. There's got to be delivery times. Maybe I just have to re-upload my app. Frustration. I can't believe there's no delivery times. Depression. We're going to starve to death.
Literally words out of her mouth.
Experiment. I asked my neighbors who actually already had COVID and now they're healed and they're going grocery shopping. Can you get me groceries? Experiment, like tagging onto somebody else's Instacart, right? Decision. I'm going to check Instacart every day. And now I realize I can go through each store and look. And now changes are that, okay, I'm going to get enough food and I'm going to grow my own food for certain things. And I'm going to plan out integration. I'm going to plan out like 2 week spurts because I feel like every 2 weeks I can get groceries.
This is your life now. You're integrated.
This is me in New Jersey. We're the second hardest hit state. So it's very different for us here than in other places. So my Minna said, can I mail you food from Iowa?
Literally, my husband said that same thing. He's like, would they eat some noodles, some ramen noodles? I was like, I don't know. I think that's probably like their last resort.
So it's just like another example of how this can get applied. But the integration is that we're going to compost now. We're dealing with composting. We are learning how to sprout potatoes and grow our own potatoes. We're growing our own greens. And by the way, guys, all of this is us buying stuff from product people. Like, yeah. That's the coolest thing, right? That now that we are innovating and we're integrating these new changes, we're looking for other products that we never bought before and we're turning into new customers for other product-based businesses.
Yeah, it's the change curve. When you come out of here and you integrate and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just a different person than I was before. I can't believe I wasn't growing my microgreens.
Yeah, I'm wasteful. Who am I? Of course I
It's
should
like,
make
you
my
know
own
how
food.
that your 20s literally could be this whole stage, right? And you look back and you're like, what a dummy I was, and you're like, I could never go back to that
No.
life. So once we get through this crisis and this big, huge change curve of COVID-19, I know it's really hard right now, but literally there is another side to this, than the other end to it. Just like, when the bubble burst and the recession of, the stock market and all the different things, there's a shock. So going through the stages again, shock, denial, frustration, depression, and then the upswing is experiment, decision, and then integration.
Yeah. So share with us, you guys. Get on Instagram, send us a DM, tell us where you're at in the Kübler-Ross model. If you click on the show notes, we will share a link so you can visually see what this model looks like. And just share with us and know that we're all going through it. And if you're feeling a certain way, actually, maybe we'll post this on our Instagram feed.
Yeah,
Post the
that's a
image
good
on our
idea.
Instagram. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So we'll share it with you guys there. And then let us know where you're at with it. And just know, though, that people have gotten through harder things in their life. People are currently dealing with harder things in their life. People are losing people to COVID. So if you're safe at home and you're working on figuring out how to, go through this and grow your business, you guys will get through it. And if you are, we're wishing that you're all healthy and are on the upswing as well, and that you guys are all safe. And we're with you in this. And we're so excited to see how you experiment, what decisions you make, and then how you integrate all this new stuff into your business, because you guys will transform when this is done.
Yes. And we are going to be super excited to see the new version of you and how you've integrated. So thanks, everybody. Check out our show notes and we'll see you later. This episode is over, but it doesn't have to end. Head over to our Facebook group, search for the Product Boss Biz Community, or the link is also in the show notes. Come connect with other product bosses just like you. We'll see you in there.
If you love the Product Boss podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, share, rate, and give a review on iTunes. Until next time, Product Bosses, let's make it happen.